And namaste, namaste, hearty good morning, and hello to all of you. I love being back here. Thank you so much, Michael, for the invitation. I feel like it's been a long time since I was here. I know it's been about 8 or 9 months, but it feels a lot longer. And I think that's part of our sort of time variance hangover that we're all still having from last year, with time being a very weird thing now. But anyway, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Carol. And I am really happy to be here today to talk about living the truth, living as truth, because I think this is a very timely and important and helpful issue for all of us to engage with right now. Because when you look at what's happening in the bigger picture of our world, as crazy and chaotic as it looks, we're actually being called very powerfully into truth, into recognizing what is truth within us. We're being called to understand and discern the difference between the egoic centric false truths, these judgments and opinions that are espoused as truth massively in our world right now in a very confusing way. The difference between that and what is divinely true within me, within each of us, because it's that latter that is the thing that leads us into the ability to live in union with the God in all things, in all the ways that God is within and around us. So I'm going to talk about this in detail today. Now, I'm getting ready to do a series, a mini live stream series with this exciting new poet called Chelan Harkin. Many of you probably know about Chelan. Yes, she's totally exciting. We're doing a series called The Mystic's Front Porch. And it is an opportunity to invite everybody into our world. There you go. Carol is holding up her two books right there. Chelan, she's very much the Rumi and Hafiz of our time. It's so exciting to live in this world at the same time as her and to be able to read and engage with her. So I'm going to let Chelan kick us off here and set the tone for this talk about living our truth. Because I think that she can do a really good job with this poem, better than I can. So this poem is called You Were Very Brave. You were very brave to have come to a place where your light would not always be seen. Often it feels like we've signed a strict, invisible contract with each other, agreeing to keep this great light, this truth inside of us, tucked away and held back. But you've felt the stirrings, haven't you, of knowing this hiding must end. It seems to me the end of times is rumbling within our hips, our ribs, our voices, this great light readying itself to emerge. Knowing once it comes out, it can never be put back away for good again. Oof. Once we come into that truth, once we let that truth rise up and be known, it can never be put back away for good again. Isn't that something? Now, I have a way to show you how I experience what the divine truth is and the difference that I experience metaphysically between divine truth and these conceptual false truth that the ego creates. And I'm going to do it by reading from my book, which I rarely ever do. So Carol, I appreciate you saying that these chapters are short and talking about the book, because I just happens to be that I'm going to read from it today. I told you, you set me up really, really well. So I wrote this piece while I was living in the tiny little nunnery in the Himalayas, leading a very contemplative life. And this is one of those experiences. Today, I've been contemplating what it means to be the light of God. I question whether this has ever been an actual light visible on Earth, or if it's simply a radiant goodness that can be sensed through expressions and gestures. I'm warm in my bed and about to fall asleep at the end of a long day when before me comes the answer to my question. In front of my closed eyes, two screens appear side by side. On one screen is being God's light from the experience of my mind. On the other screen is being God's light from the experience of my heart. On the mind screen, the scene is drab and extremely elementary. It's like a strange artificial recreation of a masterpiece depicting everyday life, but with simple scenery and stick figure people moving about in predictable, mechanical motion. It is empty of reality, but it is as though the mind is trying earnestly to reproduce its own concept of reality. Next to this, on the heart screen, there is ethereal wonder. Colors are otherworldly and vibrant, and a vibrating clear luminescence simultaneously bathing every single aspect of the scene. Motions of both people and nature are fluid and somehow melodic. Feelings are felt like a breeze, drenched in compassion and understanding. All things in the scene are varying forms of vibration. In fact, the entire scene itself is vibrating, as though the finest movements of the space in which everything exists are visibly alive. In this scene, I can see precisely how everything is intertwined. Everything affects everything. And in every impact, there are magnificent vibrations of love. As I watch these two side-by-side screens, I can see that the heart knows that to be God's light is to let go of all conceptual constraints and simply be the full energy or vibration of the truth of who I am. And that energy / vibration is all forms of light itself. All forms of light itself. And I can also see that my mind cannot understand what that means. Because the very function of my mind is to try to understand. And therefore, it can never actually be or reproduce what it is trying to understand. The mind, therefore, only and always produces a false reality. To be God's light, then, is to be only and always of the heart. That truth that lies within us in our hearts. That is my experience of living what truth is. Now, as a reminder, and as you've heard just now in this book, I am a mystic, and I teach mystic wisdom based solely on what I experience. I have no religious background, no philosophical background, so I can only teach based on what I've experienced. And therefore, I have an extremely strong innate commitment to the integrity of truth. I will only teach the truth of what I experience without layering on a bunch of additional things from my mind. Now, early on, when I became aware of these abilities 21 years ago, the second experience I ever had was going up into the cosmos and realizing, as Carol referenced earlier, that I am the message. And I am to be revealed in this world as the message. Not the messenger, but the message. I'm not here to pass along a message. I'm here to embody that message, to live the experience of that message personally. So while all of my experiences relate to the collective of humanity, what's happening in humanity's evolution, I will eventually have to embody every single lesson that I learn. And sometimes that happens immediately. Sometimes it's happening within the mystical experience itself. Sometimes that happens kind of gradually, bit by bit. I have to integrate little by little by little an understanding of something greater. And then sometimes, much later, after the mystical event, there's a catalyzing thing that brings that experience back, and I have an unexpected opportunity to embody the lesson. So now, as I mentioned, I'm getting ready to do this series with Chelan. And Chelan and I are going to be talking about the truth of the mystical journey and all that that encompasses. And our very first very first talk on Wednesday night is called The Truth That Sets Us Free. Now, if I'm getting ready to put this out publicly, if I'm going to teach in mystical wisdom about truth, about living and embodying truth, then I have to make sure, everything within me is going to make sure that I am living that truth. I am in the full embodiment of living my truth. So the alignment with that truth led to a catalyzing event. And that's going to be the story that I tell you today. It's the basis of this. Okay, last year, on April 2nd, 2020, which is, you'll recall, that's just when the pandemic is starting to really get into full motion. We're early in our confusion there. April 2nd, 2020, I have a metaphysical experience, a very big one, that is related to the end of hell. It is about the end of the paradigm of hell. It's the end of the need for the conceptual idea of hell. And in that event, there were all these, I enter into the realm of hell. And there are all these beings that are there, these cloaked black, they're cloaked in black, all these beings. And all these beings in hell are aware that the time of healing is at hand. And these beings are in revolt. They are stomping, they're reaching out, they are insisting that the healing has to happen now. They will no longer be patient. So during that, as these beings are in revolt, this red cloaked archetype of the devil comes through the crowd and comes to stand in front of everybody. And he stands there a long time listening to the revolt. And then suddenly he slams down his scepter and surrenders. And the moment that he does that, all the beings instantly dissolve, instantly. And within my body swells up, it just fills up completely with this collective, massive wailing of relief for all of humanity. All of humanity massively relieved at the end of this hell. And as this is happening, this red cloaked archetype of the devil also begins to dissolve. But as it dissolves, it is turning into all of these fantastic colors, just this whole wild, glorious, beautiful spectrum of colors until it just becomes this big, glowing white light. And as the scene ends, in the place where the archetype of the devil had stood, all that was visible was God. That was it. When there was the end of hell, all that was realized was God. It had been there all along. It was amazing. It was so, so spectacular. So last weekend, as I'm working with Chelan and we're preparing for this big event that we're going to do focused on truth, comes the catalyzing event. I woke up Monday morning into this flood of hell. Normally, I have an extremely quiet mind. I have a beautifully quiet mind. My mind is really steady and calm and lovely. Monday morning, I was in this flood. That's all that was in my awareness. All of these beings of hell within me, these old hidden emotions, beliefs, insecurities, expectations, these narratives, all of this stuff was revolting. It was solidly in revolt. Okay, you think you're going to go talk about truth publicly? Well, then all of this has to be healed right now. No more waiting. All of this long held, latent hell within me became the place that I was living in. It was so fully all encompassing, there was no way to avoid it. There was no way to quell it. There was no way to be anywhere other than fully present with it. And that was the point. To be fully present with all of this truth that I had not been able to access before this moment. So for 2 solid days, without stop, I had to just let things rise up. I had to just see these things. And most importantly, I had to feel these things. I had to feel the truth of all these things within me. And I haven't cried that much. I haven't felt that disoriented. I haven't felt that hopeless in more than 10 years. I have never experienced anything like this on my mystical journey that has been underway now for a solid decade. It was spectacular. This devil, this archetype of the devil within me, this ancient, fearful thing within me that unbeknownst to me was holding all of this hell repressed in a realm of suffering, had no choice but to surrender and just let all this come up. So after 2 days of that, things kind of quieted down on Wednesday. And Thursday morning, I woke up into a completely different state. In the place where every speck of that hell had been, all that was visible was God. Within and around me, God was realized in absolutely everything. The end of the hell inside of me revealed God in everything. Again, it was absolutely spectacular. Not in the going through so much as the arriving. Now, in all of my 21 years of these really incredible metaphysical experiences, every single healing that I have ever been shown or embodied came down to allowing and accepting that which is true. That which is true. Without a judgment of whether that truth is right or wrong, good or bad, worthy or unworthy. The truth simply is. No denying or rejecting, it simply is. This too is true. And this week, in allowing this flow of truth that was deep within my history, within my lineage, within my life, within the collective of which I am a part, allowing all of that truth to be seen without any trying to conquer it or reject it. I was able to heal this unseen realm of hell within me in a way that I never, ever could have predicted or designed. So I tell you all of this Because within each of us and within all of humanity, this is the deep healing process that is underway. As we're trying to be distracted by all of these egocentric false truths, all of this is calling us into discernment of what is really true within us. What is that truth that lies within us, some seen and some latent? It's calling us to align to the truth that heals, not the truth that wounds, the false truth that wounds. Now, as you all know, from the last year and a half, more so even over the last 4 or 5 years, there have been many people that have been experiencing great emotional upheaval. And there will be many more that are triggered by social issues and global events and all of that. This is the way that it's playing out. This is the process. But I can assure you, from the mystical and the personal perspective, from what I've experienced in all of the collective of humanity and individually in this vessel, all of this is leading us to the realization of God in all things, including that which feels like hell. I'm going to say that again. All of this deep healing process is leading us to fully realize the God in all things, including that which feels like hell, within and around us. And I can also tell you, from mystical and personal experience, from everything I've experienced in the collective and in this individual vessel, this level of healing is a massive relief. Relief on the heart, on the soul, on the spirit, on the collective of humanity, as well as each of us individually. So no matter how crazy things might seem or get, this is the foundational healing that is at hand, and it is our truth that is leading us there. This truth that we can never put back away for good again. This truth that is seeking its freedom. So no matter what it is, there is no need at all to be afraid of it, to try to deny it, or conquer it, or reject it, because it is the thing that is leading us to the end of hell. I know this from experience. Now, because I firmly feel that this voice of truth that is seeking to have its voice heard in so many ways throughout the collective comes so purely through our friend Chelan. I'm going to close out this with another poem from Chelan. And in my experience, or in my opinion, this poem is that truth speaking directly to us, its own truth being spoken. This is called, I'm here to rock your small boat. I'm here to rock your small boat and knock you into the sea. Believe it or not, this kind of capsizing is what we've all been praying for. Because you were never meant to be that small, unstable boat. You were always the sea. And I no longer feel like enabling you away from drowning every illusion in your great vastness. I'm ready to introduce you to your power. For every pore of your knowing to drink in its profound depths. For every pore of your knowing, every truth in you to drink in its profound depths. Oof, this is where we're at. This is what we're ready for. This is what's happening. Now, if you want to explore more of this topic with Chelan and I, or for other meaty topics that we're going to get into on Wednesdays, please register to join us on the Mystics Front Porch. We would love to have you. You can go to my website, unwittingmystic.com or chelanharkin.com and register to join us. Because in my experience, it's a lot more fun to travel the healing path in the company of our friends. I thank you so much for the opportunity to share all of this with you today, and may our time together be of benefit to all beings. Namaste, namaste.